Mark my words, the Panthers defensively will not skip a beat to start the 2024-25 season.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Sunday, September 8th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12, follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers, and shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix, and 3 to 4 times a week during the month of September. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet up to $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here on another edition of the show. If you have been wondering how the episodes have been posted recently, with it being Monday through Wednesday the last 2 weeks, just full disclosure, I am a football referee for the high school and Pop Warner levels, so Thursday through Saturday are filled with a whole bunch of games, and even Wednesday nights, so it's been a little difficult navigating the day job with that. So been posting the episodes early in the week and then doing the day job along with the side hustle towards the end of the week, but also preparing to hustle a little bit to get prepared for hockey season here, and using my time here on a Sunday right before the NFL starts today, which we are, as of this recording, 3 hours from kickoff here, and just ready for football, but also ready for hockey too. We are 30 days away from opening night, and we'll get to the number 30 very soon in this segment. This first segment is going to be mostly housekeeping in relation to everything that has gone on here. But hey, South Florida has the Panthers, the greatest hockey team. We take the puck from zone to zone like no one's ever seen. So, with the Florida Panthers also announced that their rookie showcase roster, the schedule, it will start on September 13th through the 16th. And just like we not necessarily predicted, but we follow the rotation based on the rookie showcases. The rotations we predicted was going to be in Nashville, and it is going to be there this year, September 13th through the 16th. And we have our roster officially announced, and we have, if you can hear it on the audio, we have it all printed, and we are going to discuss more of that later in the week. The plan is to still bring TJ Schlott, the play-by-play voice of the Charlotte Checkers, to preview rookie showcase that will be going on later in the week. This week we're going to have at least the plan is to have a good amount of guests in relation to the Florida Panthers, and we're starting to ramp up more and more every day as we are 30 days away. And speaking of number 30, we are Spencer Knight days away from opening night. And not only is that, he's getting his day with the Cup today in Darien, Connecticut for his day. And once again, congratulations to him on being part of he's still a very major part of the organization, even though he didn't play a single NHL game this season, still developed really well throughout the season this year in Charlotte too. But also, the Florida Panthers have announced some of their theme nights here for the 2024-25 season, and some of them goes as follows. Opening night will be obviously on October 8th. There'll be 2 military appreciation nights, both in the month of November, which also, like the NFL, they do military appreciation through the month of November. So the Panthers are following suit there. Both of them are going to be on November 9th against the Flyers, and then November 12th against the New Jersey Devils. Another one is going to be Hockey Fights Cancer on November 16th, Pride Night on January 18th against the Anaheim Ducks, Black History Night on February 8th against the Ottawa Senators. There's going to be a Kids Day, PJ Party, which is a matinee game on March 1st against the Calgary Flames. There's going to be 2 Vamos Gatos nights for for the Florida Panthers that will be held on March 3rd against the Tampa Bay Lightning and March 6th against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So two of them are going to be very close to each other as far as theme night. And then the very last one is going to be April 12th, which is Fan Appreciation Night against the Buffalo Sabres. And usually it's the last home game that they have Fan Appreciation Night, but they haven't really done that over the last two seasons. The Panthers do have a back-to-back towards the end of the season, one at home against New York, and then the very next day they go to Tampa to finish off the season there. So it's not going to be on game 82 this season for Fan Appreciation Night for the Panthers. Also, one thing that's going on in the community is right across the street from the Panthers arena is a gator naming contest that's going on at Sawgrass Mills. So it's awesome to see that the community more has embraced the Panthers more and more, because even walking through Sawgrass Mills from time to time, if you didn't tell me that the arena for where the Florida Panthers played was across the street, sometimes you probably wouldn't even know unless you went into a sporting goods store or sports apparel store there in Sawgrass too. So more of the staple of the Florida Panthers is there. So that's also something great that we are seeing in our region. And although the stop for the Cup is currently in the Northeast in Darien, Connecticut, like we said a few seconds ago, recently the Stanley Cup have been in different places throughout South Florida. One of them recently has been at Shuck and Dive at the restaurant there, where my colleague Ethan Skolnick took a picture there with Dolphins legend OJ McDuffie too. So cool, pretty cool picture there as it's continuing to make their stops. But the most and also Phil Pritchard posted a picture of him with the star of The Bachelorette. I'm not going to pretend like I've watched that show, but making it on certain shows too of reality TV is a pretty cool appearance too. But the most moving one that I've seen recently, I just unfortunately remember and all of us obviously remember of the horrible tragedy that happened at Marjory Stoneman Douglas back on Valentine's Day of 2018. The Cup made its appearance there, and obviously Marjory Stoneman Douglas has that connection to the Panthers too, with their hockey team playing at the Ice Den in Coral Springs as part of their games too, and for the Cup to make its visit there, as it can't bring the lives back of the kids, but just a reminder that the organization is still, and South Florida is still thinking about them too. And saw a picture of Robbie Tallis there, and also Robbie Tallis took a picture of him with a live gator in next to the Cup too. So that's also something that we have seen. But after Spencer Knight has his day with the Cup will actually be coming back to South Florida, where more fans will get to take pictures with the Cup, as the Cup will be coming to the Amerant Bank Arena, Pantherland tomorrow from 4 to 7 p.m. It's first come, first serve. So you're hearing it on this podcast. So that you'll be able to go there too. So that will be a stop there, but it's going to be happening from 4 to 7 p.m. tomorrow at the Pantherland at FLA Team Shop there. So also, we spoke about Rookie Showcase earlier. Mackie Simiskevich, who's not going to be part of Rookie Showcase this year, graduated from it. We expect that he's going to be part of the team. I'm expecting him to make the team. We saw a sighting of him at War Memorial training with Vladimir Tarasenko and Evgeny Malkin too there. Also, another thing that's going on in the community, which I'm surprised the Cup did not make its appearance at Lone Depot Park this past Friday, as the Miami Marlins had their annual Florida Panthers Day. And obviously the Marlins and the Panthers have a great relationship. They came into the region around at the same time, had the same owner in Wayne Huizinga to start their tenure in their respective leagues. The Stanley Cup did not make an appearance at Lone Depot Park, to my knowledge, but we did see Evan Rodriguez throw out the first pitch of the game for the Panthers Day there for the Marlins. And also Jeff Conine, who his son Griffin Conine is part of the Marlins. There was also some pregame festivities there. So South Florida connections, and also with just the relationship that's continuing to build between these two franchises, and it's just it's pretty awesome how. But also, a few years ago, the Panthers had their Florida Panthers Day, and the Marlins almost scored 10 runs. It was not the case this time around for the baseball team in Little Havana. So can't happen every year, but I hope that if you were a fan and you attended that game, that you had the time of your life there. But in segment number 2, we are gonna go into the Florida Panthers talk, and we are going to discuss why I believe that the Florida Panthers defensively will not miss a beat. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet up to $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. With a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you could cancel anytime. And if that's not enough, FanDuel also has something special for our listeners this weekend. Be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all of Sunday, September 8th. Pre-game moneyline bets. Profit Boost will be starting live on Friday, September 6th. And all you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. And once again, I'd like to thank you guys all for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure you check out Locked On NHL. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day, with national experts and local insights on every team in the league. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, first of all, I do want to congratulate Mark Stahl on his career. He has announced that he has retired from the NHL and now will be an assistant coach. Well, not an assistant coach, a development coach, with the New York Rangers, a team that he spent a good part of his career with. And also, if you're interested, as we are still mourning the losses of Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau, the Columbus Blue Jackets will be live streaming their funeral on the website there, and also their sister added something to her wedding ring, the letters of the first initial of Johnny and Matthew on her ring. So a really nice touch there to still honor her brothers, and also just as a reminder of them all forever being a part of her life, whether they are there or not. So really still really sad tragedy that we heard about with the Gaudreau family. And also former Panther Matt Cullen has been inducted into the USA Hockey Hall of Fame, NHL journeyman, but spent the early 2000s portion, one season with the Florida Panthers. So congratulations on Matt Cullen on getting into the USA Hockey Hall of Fame. So this segment is mostly going to talk about why I believe the Florida Panthers blue line won't skip a beat to start the season. We spoke about all summer about systems, Paul Maurice, goaltending with Sergei Bobrovsky. There's continuity with the top pair of Forsling and Aaron Ekblad and everything. Obviously, there's been changes with the blue line. Obviously, there's the question of who's going to be the power play quarterback. Is it going to be Nate Schmidt, Adam Boquist, Gustav Forsling, or is Aaron Ekblad going to be back into the power play? But for the blue line defensively, one thing that has been consistent, that was consistent last season, it was shot suppression. And for the Panthers, really towards the top of the league in block shots. Nico Mikkola is still part of this team. There's continuity in that aspect. But for the Panthers, And when you think about the role that someone like Ulrich Larson played for the Panthers, the block shots per game, even though he played more games than someone like a Nate Schmidt, was not at a higher rate than what Nate Schmidt had. In OEL's first 16 games with the Panthers, when Brandon Montour and Aaron Ekblad were out, he averaged 1.56 blocks per game, but his average time on ice was just south of 24 minutes there. The rest of the 64 games that he played, his average block shots per game, it was almost one block shot less for that in 17 minutes of ice time after that. And Nate Schmidt is coming from Winnipeg, where he played with the Vezina Trophy winner in Connor Hellebuck and also the Jennings Trophy winner. Unfortunately, Laurent Brossoit was not part of the Jennings Trophy due to the games played criteria that is there to be part of it. But Nate Schmidt, 76 block shots in 63 games, and he has 4 seasons worth of 100 block shots per season, including 121 in the year that Vegas went to the Stanley Cup in their very first season there. And even postseason this past year for Ulrich Larson, 24 games played, obvious. And yes, OEL is more of the offensive defenseman for him. 18 blocks in 24 games. 6 blocks for Nate Schmidt in the 3 games that he played with Winnipeg in the postseason. And yeah, his average time on ice for the Jets was not even in the top 6 for blue liners for the Jets. But he's going to get more of that opportunity with the Panthers there. And really, for him, it's issues with him has just been able to just keep the puck on his stick when exiting the zone. And that's a big quality when it comes to defensemen. Defensemen are judged based on exiting the zone. Forwards are judged on gaining the zone. But what like I said, 76 games worth is something for Nate Schmidt. 106 blocks total in his 76 postseason game. OEL has 40 block shots in 49 postseason games. And OEL doubled the amount of postseason games just in this recent playoff run for the Panthers than he did in his career prior to that. And obviously, circumstances have a lot to do with it. You can't put the whole blame on him too. But think about where for Sergei Bobrovsky, he's not getting any younger, and we didn't see really the flashy saves, and we even saw parts of the postseason where the Panthers would go sometimes 10, 15 minutes without allowing a shot. Oh my God, that was especially in the Rangers series where the Panthers were just in the Panthers' end. The Igor Shesterkin was just so under duress, and the forwards. Let's also recognize that the forwards helped out the defense a lot with how they got on their forecheck too, and that puts a lot less pressure. You're not exerting so much energy. They say when you're cycling the puck, you rest on offense. You're your head on a swivel and you are on your toes on defense. That's the philosophy of that. And they say rest on offense, even though you're in the opponent's end, but you're in control. So you're technically resting. You are in control there. And I think this is something that we spoke about last week for someone like Spencer Knight, and why this is such a perfect situation for Spencer Knight to succeed here when you think about it. And Adam Boqvist's block shots per game was higher last season, even though he fell out of favor with the coaching staff there in Columbus, which Pascal Vincent was very veteran heavy on how he constructed his lineup, which is a big reason due to his firing there, is the lack of trust of his young players too. And Paul Maurice, I mean, we've seen this in 2 seasons too. And obviously the Panthers aren't rebuilding, obviously, but we've seen a reliance on veteran guys over young players, which begs the question on how much Mackey will actually play too in regard to that. So it might be another situation where you see him start the season, play a few games to get a little bit of a taste, and then set back down. I will say that scoring might be a little bit of a struggle for the Panthers from the blue line. I mean, 2 seasons ago, they led the league in points from their D. Brandon Montour was a big part of that in setting the records. But just like Lundell, how he talked about his forwards on, he is one of those guys who I don't know what he's going to become, but I'm very excited to see that. And I feel that way about Gustav Forsling on the blue line. And Gus, I don't think it's crazy to say that he could become a 15-goal scorer for the Panthers. I won't predict 20 for Gus. I think that's too big of a jump to make that much of a prediction. I'm not going to come here and fill so many hot takes here for the blue line, as there's still just so many questions offensively. The defensive end, now looking at everything from a numbers perspective, and obviously we're looking at this on paper. We still have to see games, but based on that and Nate Schmidt playing in a really tight defensive system in Winnipeg, I think that for Nate Schmidt, making that transition over to Florida is going to be maybe a little easier than we think for him. And like I said, Gustav Forsling, I can see him become a 15-goal scorer. But even Aaron Ekblad, this is an opportunity for him to get back into hit offensive numbers for him too, as the Panthers still have to navigate a few things with the cap in the next few seasons too, and even questions on whether he is going to re-sign with the Panthers after this season. Aaron Ekblad, I won't predict a 20-goal season from him neither. He hasn't even gone past 16, and he was on pace for a 20-goal season a few years ago, right before getting injured. But even if he is on the power play and taking one-timers from the left side, most of his goals come from even strength. If you're looking at it on Hockey Reference, that's where most of his goals come from. So it's really gonna once again come down to dominant 5-on-5 play, which we mentioned earlier in the segment on the Panthers and their dominance over the New York Rangers. And where did most of that dominance come from? Came from 5-on-5, which the majority of these hockey games are played on, obviously. But that is a little bit of my 2 cents in why I think the Panthers blue line defensively will not skip a beat. But coming up in the next segment, we are going to discuss the Athletics point projections for the Florida Panthers and what I think of them. And I'm going to give some over-unders to close out the show. We are going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment number 3 here on this Sunday, September 8th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Sunday. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you see that I have the football apparel on, but no green screen background, as if I were to put the green screen on, this apparel that I have would be transparent, and I would look like Harry Potter with the invisibility cloak, like he did in the first movie, in the Sorcerer's Stone. So that's why you see the green screen off for this edition of the show. So the Athletic put out their point projections for the Panthers this upcoming season, and we're going to start off with the most points that they think versus the least, and going all the way down to the 30s. Everyone outside of that, I won't make over unders on who I think if they will go over and under for. So the first one, point projections for Matthew Tkachuk. They have it at 102, and Matthew Tkachuk the last 2 seasons averages 105.5 points per season in his 2 with the Panthers. So he took less shots last season, less time, right, crashing the net. more time in behind the net as he distributed more of the puck to Sam Reinhart, obviously in that bumper position, especially on the power play. I think, and this is something that we spoke about a lot, even before the season ended. I think that Matthew Tkachuk is going to go back towards the 109 point mark that he had for the Panthers, and for him, I think it's going to be over 102. Alexander Barkov, they have him as a point projection for 84, and based on the averages and point pace, and based on this, the Athletic has already projected this based on assuming that Alexander Barkov will miss time. And this is the smart thing to do. If you are betting on this too, you can't. It's just the truth that you can't rely on 82 games worth of Alexander Barkov for him. And this is something that was also referred to on the 32 Thoughts podcast, which they have a new co-host in Kyle Bukaskas, after unfortunately everything that has happened with Jeff Merrick and sharing inside information on the draft due to Sportsnet being a TV partner. Barkov, they spoke about how they're curious to see how the Panthers and how they're going to treat their health coming into the regular season, how they're going to see it more of a marathon over a sprint. Are they going to lay it off the gas a little bit when it comes to, if you're kind of banged up, yeah, we'll take you out. We'll maybe we'll load manage you a little bit more. That's the mentality of the coaching staff. I don't know. I'm really that's something that we're gonna have to see, and we won't really. I don't think we might know that until maybe like game 10 of the season, maybe, because it's not a fact of if injuries happen, it's when for the Panthers, and it's something that Doug Plagans talks about every preseason, where the guys on the opening night roster, your 23 original guys, you're going to need more than that for the season. And Barkov has missed nine or more games in the last 4. So obviously we speak about Barkov and his 40 his ability to score 40 goals, and he has all the talent in the world. And in my opinion, he's a top 3 center in the NHL. NHL.com has him at number 5, but he's in the top 3, which you could label that as underrated if you want to. But I mean, look at the Stanley Cup final, what he did against Connor McDavid on both sides of the ice. Point production on the stat sheet doesn't always speak about how valuable Barkov's game is. You have to actually watch it on the ice for him. But points wise, I'm going to go with the under, but I'm not confident in the under too, because you just never know how Barkov is going to come out. And also, I feel like there's also another gear, weirdly, that we haven't seen for him. Sam Reinhart, 82. They have him at 82 points, and he's right at the point per game for his Panthers tenure. 243 points in 242 games, and a humongous jump from 67 in 2023 to 94 in 2024. And here's the thing. He only took 6 more shots in the 2024 regular season than 23. The shooting percentage, though, was 11% higher. Obviously, I'm not predicting another 57-goal season. Nowhere close. But average percent, if you're talking about the last 2 seasons combined, is 19.1%. If they feed him the puck in his sweet spot and teams don't catch on, which obviously there's a lot of tape on the Florida Panthers. They are the hunted instead of the guys hunting. We're looking at least 42 goals. So 42 goals, 82 minus 42, and looking at 40 assists, which we've seen that Sam Reinhart could also be a distributor too. I say give me the over on Sam Reinhart too. Carter Hagee, they have him at 71 points. So 73 and 72 points over the last 2 seasons, respectively. But like we've hammered over and over and over again about wanting Swaggy to get paid, and when you look at the points for the Panthers, He's in the top 4. But for which is why we're pounding the table for it. So, but for what Swaggy could do from the outside, even outside the hashes too, and shoot from distance with one of the best wristers in the NHL, and the situation with the contract, I'm going to go with the over for Carter Verhaeghe. Sam Bennett, the next one. This is a big drop off for point projections. They have Sam Bennett at 45. And like Barkov, Sam Bennett is one of those guys who you can't judge his game fully based on the stat sheet. With the sandpaper he brings, he has at least 119 hits each of the last 3 seasons. What he does of gaining the zone, like we spoke about earlier in the show, getting behind the D, creating the forecheck, and I mean, one of the most beautiful goals that we saw throughout the playoffs was in game 1, I believe, game 1 or 2, the early part of the Stanley Cup final, where he's gaining the zone, gets behind Cody Ceci, and then dishes the puck to Evan Rodriguez for a goal too. But for what Sam Bennett's also smart enough that when he sees someone coming to check his stick, flipping the puck, being the first guy to get it to the end boards and then getting it low to high to the blue line, he might not be the guy who benefits point wise if there's a cycle and then there's a score. But he's a big part of gaining the zone that the points might not get there. So, but it's a contract year. But also, health has also been a thing for an issue for him too. And also for him is, I just think with what's coming with Anton Lundell, I think that eventually, not only does Anton Lundell go up into the top 6 when there's an injury, but I think this is going to be a time to maybe experiment getting him those minutes in the top 6 prior to transitioning over to next season, the season after, excuse me, for him. So I think that for 45, I'm going to go with a push for this one. And this also gives us an opportunity to talk about Lundell too. Lundell is at 42, which I got the over, because this man stealing offensively is just I think there's also, like Barkov, there could be that next gear for him too. And although the skating isn't up there for Lundell, how strong he is on the puck, his ice time will go up, and all, I think over for the number 42 for Lundy. Aaron Ekblad, 38 points. Based on the last 2 seasons under Maurice, this would assume that he'll play all 82 games, going to get more power play time, like we mentioned earlier. So this one's easy for me. Give me the over. Evan Rodriguez, 37 points. Erod hasn't gotten over 37 points in each of the last 3 seasons, but him as the Swiss Army knife type of guy who could go all over the top 9 for him, that could mess with his although he works well with guys, he might not benefit points wise too every single time, but there might be those stretches where once again he might get those 4-point games. But sometimes when there's a 4-point game, then there might be those periods of time where he gets 0 too. So I'm going to take the under. I don't think it's going to be that many 4-point games. I think he had like 3 4-point games at one point this past season. I know he had more than 2, but there were times where it's like, whoa, where it's the Erod game, and there were multiple times during the regular season where we saw the Erod game. I mean, we saw multiple Erod games in the final round in the Stanley Cup final too. So once again, I mean, Evan Rodriguez was just a big part of that Stanley Cup final, especially the first goal to take the lead in Game 7, where at the end of the power play, and then Carter Verhaeghe is just there to tip it past Stuart Skinner to go up 1-0. And once again, that was power play 2 that did it too. Last one, Eetu Luostarinen, a guy who's looking likely going to be a staple on that third line wing, as he has not moved as much as the other guys, like we mentioned earlier. But I think he's going to be feeling the pressure this season, because Jacob and I spoke about earlier in the summer how there could be a possibility that he could be traded after this year to keep a Carter Verhaeghe if things are so tight up against the cap for the Panthers, because we still don't know what is. We're thinking 92 million for where the cap is going to be next year, but that's a prediction. We don't know the exact numbers. We won't know until a projection maybe later in like March or April or anything with that. So I'm gonna go with the under for the Panthers there. And last year the Panthers were 11th in the NHL in goals per game too. Who is the guy who takes that step for the Panthers to get them back into the top 10 for them too? But hey, we know what this team's identity is, and like we mentioned in segment number 2, defense. They are gonna, like we mentioned with Schmidt, Adam Boquist, and even guys who are going to be part of the mix this year, and Toby Bjornfoot and Uvis Balinskis. I mean, that identity is going to be the staple for the Panthers. It's just for them when it comes to quick transition, first pass in out of the zone. How are the Panthers going to work their transition game? Because they're not going to be they're not a speed team anymore. Those days have been over for them too. So they're gonna, it's if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And the Panthers, with getting them deep and creating those off script on the forecheck, it's going to be it's going to continue being part of their bread and butter for even going in as they try to defend their Stanley Cup championship. But that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you once again for listening to today's episode. I hope you guys enjoy the football today, because I'm definitely going to enjoy myself and hoping for a win for sure. There's going to be a jam-packed week of guests on the show, and also preparing as hockey is one step closer to being back on our television screens. And 2 weeks from today is the first preseason game for the Florida Panthers in their doubleheader against the Nashville Predators. So hang on, guys, because hockey is one step closer to being here. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.